Welcome to How to Be a Host podcast. I am your host, Charles Ewudo, and today I have a very special guest, my friend, Mars. She is the Assistant Director of Front Office Operations, and she's going to have a lot to share when it comes to guest experience. She has a really in-depth background in that space. So I'm really excited to really jump right into this. Mars, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling good. Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Charles.
Of course. I know this interview is way overdue. I'm so glad that we're finally having the time to make it happen. So how about we just go ahead and start a little bit about you? You want to just go ahead and just tell us a little bit more about your background? How did you get here? How did you get to this role?
Oh, that's a long journey, but yes, I'm happy to share. So currently I am at the Waldorf Astoria Beverly Hills. But my first properties that I opened here in LA was the Nomad in Los Angeles downtown by Citadel Group. They are everywhere. All their brands are amazing. They had the Line, they had the Ned in London, they have the Saguaro in Palm Springs. And then my next journey is one of my favorite properties, which I shouldn't probably say out loud, is the Soho House in downtown, the Soho Warehouse. So I opened that spot. I've always had an affinity for private clubs and hospitality. And we all know that Soho House is a powerhouse. And their location in downtown was the first time that had rooms. So that was my in, and combining the world of hotel and the world of private membership clubs. After that, pandemic happened, as we talked about in hospitality. It changed the course of life as we know it. I started at the Dream Hollywood during the pandemic, and that was like an amazing experience. You had to grow up a lot, especially with how the climate changed and all that.
Right.
And after that, I opened up another private club. It's all private clubs right there. Called the Astor in Hollywood, which took over the old H Club, which used to be the former Redberry.
I remember that. Wow. Yeah, yes. I remember Redberry. Yeah.
Do you remember Cleo, that restaurant there?
Yeah.
That was fantastic. Their food was just insane. And then here I am at the Waldorf Astoria in Beverly Hills. It went from 0 to 100 right there.
Amazing. I mean, honestly, you have such a strong track record and background in the space. Really impressive. And we've been in LA forever, and we've watched the evolution. We've watched venues come and go. We've seen, hotels come and go, nightclubs come and go. LA is just that vicious cycle of rinse and repeat, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's just a beautiful thing to witness. But I want to really learn a little bit more about where you're at today. At the Waldorf Astoria. How do you say it?
The Waldorf Astoria.
Waldorf Astoria.
Astoria. The Waldorf Astoria.
I think you're not. I was rehearsing how to say this for like 12 hours yesterday, and I still can't get it right.
It is quite of a tongue twister. It is.
Yeah.
Yes, the Waldorf Astoria Beverly Hills. There you go.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So I mean, given today's climate, just given the rich history of the iconic brand, I know that the demographic there really skews a bit older, right? How are you guys thinking about the future when it comes to being relevant to, the younger audiences, where you're thinking about Gen Zs and millennials? Like, I'm curious, is that something that y'all think about at all?
So I think the impression is that because we are the Waldorf Astoria, the first one opened in, the 1980s, if I'm not mistaken, the impression is it attracts like the old blood, the old rich blood. But we are in the middle of Beverly Hills. We do have a fantastic rooftop, and that already basically attracts all kinds of clientele. Because of our location as well, you have to remember that we're in the land of celebrities, in the land of musicians, in the land of all these artists. They want to be in one of the most iconic, the most prestigious locations and hotels to be found, you know. It doesn't matter what the price point is, they will make themselves seen there. So in terms of our clientele, we do have a combination of both, I'd like to say, old money and new money. The team that we have right now post-pandemic, especially our sales and marketing team, with the rise of all social media, they are being a little bit more active with partnering up with, dare I say, influencers.
Yeah,
you know,
it's unavoidable
like,
at this point, right?
Is there another term that I can use for that? Creators, tastemakers. There you go. Like, they are more partnering up with tastemakers to kind of put a little bit more exposure, although it's not that much needed, I feel like. But yes, so we are partnering up with a lot of creative people, right?
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm very curious about that. I feel like, especially in the era that we're in, the era of social media, if you think about hospitality the way it used to be, especially luxury hospitality, right? We had that history of wanting to stay exclusive and more hidden and away from the camera. But I feel like now a lot of like moderate brands are a little bit more forced to like give in to the whole social media craze and be a little bit more visible, and work with creators, as we say. So I'm very curious to see how you guys are gonna really handle that. That's going to be really, really interesting to see.
Well, there's two parts in our brand, right? We are who we are because we also respect like the caliber of our clientele. So it goes both ways. In terms of outreach and social media, yes, we will expose ourselves and all that. But in terms of our guest privacy, in terms of our, high-profile guests that we do get, whether they're the Gen Z or, politicians, all that, depending on their comfort level, we do obviously honor their privacy as much as we can. But because we are so discreet and because we are so private, that's kind of what attracts the people to us.
Yeah.
They can go to other hotels. They can be exposed to all the paparazzi, all the photographers, and to the public. But when they come to us, they know that they're comfortable, they're home, they can go about their day without being fussed over. And that comes with, word of mouth too. They'll hear, oh, they have a VIP entrance. We'll escort them to a private entrance. We'll get them where they're supposed to be. So that's kind of like one way of how we attract this sort of clientele as well.
Right. No, that's, I love that. I feel like, having that, the fact that you guys have that diverse roster of clientele, and you guys have a way to really cater to both or all demographics in that spectrum. So that's really interesting. But there is something really fun coming up, right? You guys are planning like an NYE party, it seems. I want to go to that. Can I get in? Can you get me into that?
Oh. We can most likely get you in, of course. We do have our new restaurant, Espelette, that opened up a few months ago by our in-house executive chef. So they are offering, live music and a prefix dinner as well on on Christmas Eve, as well as Christmas. In terms of New Year's Eve, they're doing that as well. The rooftop is, unparalleled views. That's always, I don't like saying sold out, but always kind of like at full capacity every year. It's if you haven't been, it's beautiful up there. So yeah,
I'm gonna make it a priority to make sure I check that out. I've been hearing a whole lot about other really cool things there. Can you talk to me about your restaurant? Rooftop by JG?
The Rooftop by JG, yes. So that is the rooftop. If you're not familiar with the Rooftop by John George. So John George is this Michelin-starred chef. He has places all over the world. My favorite, one of his locations is at the Maldives, where they perform like that saber with a champagne situation.
Yeah.
Yes, they don't do that in here, but they should. So the rooftop, it offers 360, degree views of Beverly Hills. You go upstairs on the elevator, and you go through this promenade. It's this beautiful walkway, with plants around, and then you see Beverly Hills. You see the hills. There's the pool on the right.
Wow.
The music is just there. It is definitely an experience walking down that promenade.
Okay, so for the party on NYE though, is that separate in a separate area, or is
Oh
that
no, it's
involved?
part of the whole experience.
Wow.
Yes, this is it's
So it's
it's
gonna
a
be
journey.
like a whole journey, a
It
whole
is.
integrated, immersive vibe that we're gonna get.
It is. The music is fantastic. The food is just. I don't want to spoil it for you, but their caviar is just amazing. So you
Yeah.
can't say no wrong to that. So
Wow. So, okay, for all the food lovers that are tuned in, like, what can you really boast about the food on?
what I hear a lot about is the lobster burger.
Wow, I've never had a lobster burger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lobster burger, that is. Their truffle fries are always good. So it's like a lot of crowd favorites, but very unique crowd favorites. 'Cause,
Okay, a lobster burger, I'm not gonna lie, I gotta try that.
you have to try it. Yes.
I'm gonna make a trip like this weekend just to try that. Yeah.
I'll be there.
Yeah, amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
That's definitely something worth noting. I feel like there are a lot of interesting things in LA. LA is just such a global destination for hospitality and nightlife. That's part of the reason why I fell in love with it. But in your perspective, have you noticed a shift? How in your perspective, how would you say hospitality has changed in recent years, given everything that's happened, in the post-pandemic world? Like, what have you noticed?
It is definitely post-pandemic. I mean, sorry, let me backtrack. The pandemic literally changed the whole scope of hospitality, whether that be in food and beverage or in hotels. The most obvious sense being staffing levels. A lot of hospitality professionals have actually diverted from being hotels, and they just kind of just weaned off the
just dropped
space.
off,
They
yeah.
just dropped off the space. It's just because it's a little bit more challenging now, right? In terms of our guests could either be very understanding, or they can be the most discerning, people, as they should be. But they're a little bit extra more sensitive about, cleanliness and their own space, and which, as you should be. But yes, it's a little bit more of a sensitive climate nowadays.
Okay.
The 6 feet apart situation doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But, they see one person touch their doorknob, and it's
like,
the end
whoa.
of the world at this, at the moment. But the thing is, we do have all these new technology that sanitizes, that cleans the spaces. Apparently, there's robots that
I've seen one of those.
shoots, I don't know what kind of UV rays that clean the space.
Oh, wow.
And we've actually had guests, even with my past properties, specifically ask if there's this robot that does it. And we've purchased it in the past just to kind of alleviate
Okay.
people's concerns.
Wow. No, I think I have seen one of those robots, so I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
I think it's so cool.
And I think in other properties they have this. They call it a gun that shoots out these UV rays. So it's not a robot, but it's you kind of like scanning the space. I think. Yes.
Wow. I love the innovation. I feel like this space is much needed of more innovation. So I love hearing that. That's definitely something that I love to see. So are you optimistic about the future of the industry right now? Like, where you're at, do you see hospitality ever really bouncing back pre-COVID levels?
I think slowly but surely, yes. If you look at how all these properties adapt. We are moving into the future, but the trick is finding that balance between the technology and the actual hospitality and the people, right? In one of my properties, the Dream Hollywood, they integrated 2 robot butlers, and we called them Alfred and Jeffrey.
Nice.
And during my time there, this was the peak of the pandemic, you know. I could utilize them to deliver bottles of water up to my guests.
Oh, wow.
You know, towels, dental kits. We all had them stocked at the front desk, and we just played with our little desktop, pushed the little buttons. The robot came, put in the room number, and it called the elevator and rang the doorbell, per se, like at the guest room, and then the items were delivered.
Wow.
So, yes.
Okay.
A lot of things. At my current property, you know, Alexa is a big thing. You can tell her to open the drapes for you.
Yeah.
So it's all of these places are kind of involving their step in tech.
Yeah.
Something really popular across the industry right now are mobile keys.
Mobile keys.
Yes.
Okay.
So it means that your key is right on your phone.
Nice.
If you digitally check in, you know, you meet all the requirements for that digital check-in, meaning you're not a fraud.
Right.
You know, your key is activated. You can go straight to the elevators and go straight to your room.
Amazing. So how's that work with like sharing that with a friend, or does that work if I have a guest in my room and I'm like, hey, here's the key, you can come up?
I believe they do. Yeah, depending on the tech, because there's obviously different platforms for the mobile keys. I've worked with maybe 3 different ones. As long as they're registered, you should be able to. But I know there's a certain time like limit of numbers.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
We don't want you sharing keys to everybody.
Right. Or throwing a party in your room or something. Okay. No, that's really, really innovative. I love that. That's fantastic. But overall, you would say you're really optimistic of the industry coming back. You know, I know a lot of our colleagues did drop off during that period, but you're here to stay, right?
I am. You know, I love the industry. I love the way that it evolves. I like seeing all these. My favorite thing about being in the industry, specifically in the hotel, is that there's so many moving parts. You know, there's a bunch of people who have different expertise that are coming together to create an experience, which is basically, if you think about it, like magic, you know. I fell in love with it because my parents used to travel a lot, and we used to stay in a lot of hotels. And when you walk in, it's beautiful. Everyone is smiling. Everyone is engaged. The environment is flawless. You know, everything looks like it's moving like clockwork. But behind the scenes, everyone is just panicking to make everything look beautiful. I mean, They might not be panicking, but there's a lot of work that comes into making sure that guest experience is flawless and, you know, what you expect. That could be from the moment you get off your vehicle. You know, your first point is valet, but you don't know that valet is already letting the front desk know who's coming in. So by the time that you're in, we already know your name. We already know why you're here. And my favorite reaction from, you know, guests are like, how did you know me? Like, this is the first time I came here.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and you know, it's that magic moment for them, basically.
So I want to segue more into that. The magic moment that you mentioned. You know, if I wanted to host a party, why should I think about guest experience, or how should I be thinking about it? And how can someone like me, you know, ensure that I can deliver a really great experience to my guests? If let's say I'm hosting a party in, I don't know, my backyard, how does that apply?
You just tickled my brain there with that question. So you have to think about the guest experience more of like a guest journey, right? Yeah. So the experience doesn't start when they get to your property or they get to your place. The experience starts from the invitation. How are you capturing your audience? How are you capturing your guests? So in terms of you throwing it, you know, at your backyard, my question to you is now, how are you, what are you putting in your invitation? Like, how are you enticing the guests or letting them know that, hey, this is going to be at the, at my backyard, right? How are you capturing the people that are interested in outdoor parties, for instance? So what's popular nowadays? I don't really do homes. I do like more
like upscale venues, luxury,
or like invitations. Like if you were gonna do it in your backyard. Like my question to you is now, how are you sending out these invitations?
I mean, I know like right now there's a lot of different tools for that now. A few popular ones I've seen is called Partyful. You could create like a event page, and they really do a really great job on the UI design on it. Like, it's very animated and it looks very engaging. So when you send out an invite with Partyful, as a receiver on the receiver end, you'll see like really cool animations and graphics pop up, like fireworks, like come to my party, and make it really interactive. I think that's a long way from like the Facebook days when you create an event page on Facebook and it's just like really stale, right? So I've seen tools like Partyful. I think there's another really popular one in nightlife that's circulating called Posh VIP, I believe that's the name of the site. Where they really make these like event pages look really cool. You actually want to share it with a friend, and you actually want to attend these events because of the layout of the event page. It just already looks cool, But does that really? How do you think? Does that really play a vital role in the guest experience? Does that matter?
It honestly, in my world, it does because. You want to be able to, like I said, interest them, entice them. If that invitation, or if you're not visible, no one's gonna know you're there. So it's kind of like the pre-arrival journey is what it's really about, because you're gonna host a party, but if you don't capture your guest list, where's the party at? The background, So it is, the pre-arrival journey is very, very important.
Okay.
To solidify your count and the guests that you want to create.
Right.
You're right.
Okay, that's amazing. So we have to think about the pre-arrival. That's like one whole stage to it.
That's a yes.
And that's something that we should think about very seriously. We should really think about that. How do people feel when we send that invite out?
How are you engaging with them? What's to stop them from just swiping right? Although I've never done dating apps, but is it right or left? I don't know.
You gotta swipe one direction, right?
Yes.
Right. It's fascinating that you bring that up. I think a lot of people are starting to, at least I hope they're starting to understand about the pre-arrival journey is almost just as important as the main experience itself, right? But so how do you connect the two, right? What's the next stage after that? How do we think about guest experience in stage 2 after, okay, we have this event page up. What do I do now? How do I make sure that my party in my backyard doesn't suck?
How do you know it doesn't suck?
How do I prevent it from sucking?
So you always want to make sure that the crowd is always engaged. You want like something, there's a focal point that you want them to, like, what's the feature of your party is kind of what it is. I don't like to say theme, but sure, we can go from there. One of my favorite people, he was the executive chef at the Beauty in Essex, and he sent me this invite to a party at a backyard.
Oh, wow.
But it had all the elements. It had live music and food, which they were all passionate about.
Okay.
So already, he's a great chef. You have this element of music. Done. I'm right there with you.
Okay.
So you do need something that will kind of like capture the interest of your audience. Now, if it was just us and our homies in the backyard, I'm sure we don't have to get that.
Right.
Get that elaborate. We can pop a beer open. Not that I drink beers, but
Yeah. So I know the backyard analogy was oversimplified, but our listeners are very much interested in hosting high budget events, in luxury spaces, in the most extravagant fashion. How does the skill set translate into producing a larger scale event like that versus a backyard? I mean, I assume if it's a backyard, there's not really much thought that really needs to go into it. But when you elevate the experience to something that's more bigger budget, something a little bit more, much more elevated, how do you navigate that? Like, what would be, like, if I wanted to produce a Halloween party or NYE party and make it like a really big bang, like, what kind of, can you guide me through how to get started? How should I be thinking about the guest experience? Where do I begin?
Well, the beautiful part is being in the industry that we're at is that we know people that know people that know people,
Yep.
And I think it's a misconception that you have to spend ball and money to, throw a great party. Like I said, one of my favorite things about this industry is you just get to know people that you're connected. So my first journey would be, I have friends that have houses or like have rented houses or in that industry. I'll be like, hey, I need a space. What can you give me? And it's kind of like a trade-off from there. At that point, you're using somebody's house as a resource. And now you're also promoting their space at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a partnership,
Partnership where both parties win.
Yeah, where both parties win. It's like, hey, this is my space. Bring your people. They might use this next time.